Well, hello. Hope you're having a good day. I'm at home in my home study this afternoon. It's a cold day, bright and sunny, but pretty cold. But wanted to take a minute to share with you some thoughts about faith, what faith is, what faith isn't, and it's we have a lot of words in the church that we use, and we don't really think a whole lot about what we mean by them. So let's talk a little bit about faith. Um, so faith is believing in something. Um, but a lot of times I think we say, faith is believing in spite of reason, or faith is opposed to reason. And in Christianity, that's not the case. We're not called to take a blind leap of faith. We're called to believe evidence. We're not to believe something opposed to reason. We're supposed to believe things that have a good reason. And so the first thing is believing. A set of assertions of who Jesus is, what he came to do, the truth of his dying on the cross, the truth of his resurrection. And, a lot of times people will kind of talk about, oh, over here is science and over here is faith. And they're just completely opposed. I'm scientific, but, that's not the way we believe most things. We have other ways of coming to reasoning that isn't scientific. In a court of law, you can't recreate history. You are asked to listen to witnesses to see if you believe they're trustworthy, if their testimony makes sense. History itself uses the same sort of thing. You're judging evidence. Any historical matter, evaluates documents, tries to decide would the people who wrote these documents really know what was going on, that they could convey a reliable testimony to what they witnessed. Are there issues with the transmission? I mean, there's different ways of rigorously examining evidence that isn't scientific experimentation. So we don't oppose reason or logic to faith. We believe things because there's reasons. In fact, if you read the scriptures, they're never saying, "Oh, just believe." Turn your mind off and check your brain at the door and just believe. What they do is they give reasons. They say, "Hey, check this out." The book of Luke talks out with this, saying, there's several people have written accounts, and I've gone back and made an orderly account of the evidence that I've seen. So, one is faith is not opposed to reason. Faith is believing something because of the evidence that's there. It is believing a content, in um, a set of facts, assertions about reality. However, faith doesn't just stop there. True saving faith isn't just believing facts. The Bible itself says, if you believe God is one, you do well, but even the demons believe that. So there's this idea that, it's not just having it in your head, but there's a sense in which you have to put yourself into trusting it. And so faith is believing, but it's also a believing that leads to a resting in those facts, a trusting in those facts, a personal trusting in what Jesus did for you, which is actually the saving faith. It's beyond just head knowledge to a true trusting in that. And so saving faith isn't just saying I can say the creed and I believe all these things really happened, but it's I believe Christ died for me. I'm trusting in that and trusting in him and putting my hope in him. And then one other thing I want to say about faith is for a long time I was kind of given the impression that faith is almost a replacement for works. Kind of the way things had been presented to me and the way I was kind of understanding it was long ago God had given a whole bunch of rules and you had to obey all those rules. Then God decided obeying all those rules was really difficult because we're sinners. We make a mistake, and so God said, "Hey, let me just lower the bar. rather than having to do all these things, I'm going to make it really simple. And here's that. So one simple thing you have to do is you have to have trust in Jesus. And I talk to a lot of people, and they seem to have kind of that attitude of what faith is. Faith is kind of a substitute for works. So rather than having to do all these rules, I just have to do this one thing of trusting in Jesus, and that takes all of it. But that's not exactly, well, that's not what faith is. Faith is more of the means by which we receive grace. It's the instrument by which God's grace comes to us by us being united to Him. So that is, as when I have faith in Jesus, when you're trusting in Jesus, that faith unites you to Him. It's would be kind of like if you're going on a trip and there's a tour guide. You have to trust that tour guide to take you where you want to go. You're kind of united with that tour guide by following them. Um, Crass analogy, but kind of like that. By trusting in Jesus, um, it's not so much that that's something that is a work that God takes in place of doing good works. Rather, it's the means by which you receive um, all that Jesus has purchased for you on the cross. That when you're trusting in Him, you're trusting by placing your sins on Him. You've been united with Him, and He takes your debt. And in that union that comes to that faith, His goodness comes to you, and His forgiveness comes to you. So we don't look at faith as lowering the bar or anything like that. God doesn't lower His standard. The standard was met in Jesus, and we receive that benefit by faith. So faith is not a replacement for works. Faith is believing material, believing reason, believing content and some propositions about history, but it's also trusting in those facts and trusting mostly in the person of Jesus and not just the facts about Him, but who He really is. You got to have the facts to know who He is, but you have to go beyond that. I hope this clarifies. If you have some questions, hey, throw them down comments or shoot to the email that I'll have in the show notes. And really do appreciate you listening. Share if this would be helpful for somebody. Subscribe if you want to catch when I put these out. Take care.